Good afternoon. I'd like to take this opportunity today to emphasize the need for EU-US cooperation on financial services to enter into a new dimension. The existing informal regulatory dialogue between the EU and the US that you, David, have so successfully established and developed has served us very well over the last 15 years. The main benefit has been that we were able to create trust between each other, that we have established good working relationships, that we have developed mutual understanding. In some aspects, we were able to sort out some difficult issues. But since we established this regulatory dialogue on financial services, obviously the world has completely changed. First, we had the most serious financial crisis in a century, and this crisis imposes a duty on regulators to cooperate more closely to strengthen financial stability globally. Second, as a result of the crisis, the financial sector is more heavily regulated than before, and rightly so. But this more heavy regulatory framework multiplies the risks of regulatory duplications, inconsistencies, regulatory costs, and also of legal uncertainties, as pointed out by Sharon. A third reason why we need to step up cooperation between the EU and the US has to do with the need to foster economic recovery. Economic recovery requires an efficient global capital market, an efficient global banking system, so that the economy is financed in an optimal way. And this is probably right now, certainly for Europe, the most important point. We must avoid a repetition of what happened in the 30s when the financial crisis was followed by protectionist measures with economic depression as a consequence. In the financial sector, protectionism, fragmentation can take different forms, different names: ring fencing, extraterritorial application, double registration, you name it. While some of these measures can sometimes be understood from a domestic financial stability standpoint, they can also lead to retaliation in other parts of the world. And if you add them all up, you risk a very substantial negative impact on global economic recovery. I'll take one small example that was on my desk yesterday. FATCA has to do with taxation, not strictly speaking with regulatory matters, but still. What we are seeing increasingly as a result of FATCA is that European banks prefer to avoid American clients. This is certainly not in the interest of those European banks. It is not in the interest of American clients either, and it is certainly not in the interest of global economic growth and competition. So this is one example. Many others could be taken, and we definitely want to avoid these examples from being accumulated in the future. So as I said, we are working very well with the US Treasury and US regulators in the framework of the current dialogue. But this dialogue probably has reached its limits when considering the challenges that I just described, and also considering the list of very serious concerns that we currently have. I can name a few: the current consultation on foreign bank organization, where we fear that there will be onerous, disproportionate requirements imposed on non-US banks. The treatment of non-US government bonds in the framework of the Volcker rule. We await decisions from the US side on that very soon. OTC derivatives markets, of course, where, as Sharon said, we risk undermining one of the most important G20 reforms, because we cannot agree on making our rules work together between the two sides of the Atlantic. And the last example is accounting, where in spite of numerous G20 calls for a single set of high-quality standards, the convergence project hasn't moved much. And actually, we are seeing that on some crucial issues for the financial sector, we are in fact going backwards. I refer here to impairment. So this is extremely worrying, and we think that these issues need to be addressed. How? We think that the way forward is more cooperation and a greater reliance on each other's rules in the form of equivalence or substituted compliance. I very much welcome what Mr. Fisher said on substituted compliance. This is encouraging. At the same time, we would wish that these views would be more widely shared between regulators in the US. We do believe that we have now a golden opportunity to achieve more cooperation and a greater reliance on each other's rules for two reasons. First reason, thanks to the G20 and FSB coordination, thanks also to the work of international standard setters such as IOSCO, we have now a financial sector that is being reformed around common principles and common standards. So there is actually, thanks to this international work, a high degree of convergence. And this high degree of convergence should lead to equivalent outcomes and facilitate equivalence recognition. The second reason why we have a golden opportunity not to miss right now has to do with the start of the negotiations on a transatlantic trade and investment partnership. We think in the Commission, and member states, I believe, are of the same view, that regarding financial services, negotiations in the TTIP should go beyond mere market access issues and should include a regulatory component. We should endeavor to use the TTIP in order to establish a sort of binding framework leading to common regulatory principles and leading to equivalence recognition for key financial services. There are many ways to do this. We can do this inside the TTIP, next to it, or there can be a sequencing. We can first establish basic principles in the TTIP and then flesh out the details afterwards, perhaps in the context of the existing regulatory dialogue or in the context of a regulatory dialogue that would be beefed up or institutionalized. But whatever way we choose, if we opt for that, we think that this will be good news for the global economy to show that we are able to use the TTIP in order to have more EU-US cooperation on financial markets. We think that we have to do this in order to provide the transatlantic and the global economy with a financial system that is as stable, resilient, and as efficient as possible. Thank you.